You think you know wolves, right? Apex pack hunters, intelligent, efficient killers that respect the natural order. Now imagine something wearing a wolf's face, but built on a completely different blueprint. Imagine jaws that could crush a bison's skull like a ripe melon, powered by muscles so massive they distorted the entire shape of the head. Imagine a body built not for the marathon chase of modern wolves, but for something far more brutal. The gray wolf you know tips the scales at maybe 180 pounds if you find an absolute giant. This thing weighed 150 to 200 pounds on average, and some specimens pushed past 220. But weight doesn't tell the story, because this wasn't about running down prey across the tundra. Every ounce of that mass was engineered for one purpose: generating catastrophic bite force at close range. Modern wolves bite with about 400 pounds per square inch of pressure, enough to crack bones and sever arteries. This animal delivered over 900 pounds per square inch, in the same league as a modern lion, packed into a frame you'd mistake for a wolf at first glance. When paleontologists started measuring those fossilized skulls at the La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles, they realized they weren't looking at an oversized wolf at all. They were looking at North America's bone-crushing specialist. They called it Canis dirus, the dire wolf. Those jaws deserve their own chapter because they were absurd. The skull of a dire wolf measured up to 12 inches long, roughly the size of a basketball, and it was built like a hydraulic press wrapped in flesh. The temporal muscles, the ones that power the bite, attached to a sagittal crest on top of the skull so pronounced, it looked like a shark fin running front to back. You can see the attachment points on the fossils, these massive scarred ridges where the muscle anchored to bone. When those muscles contracted, they generated enough force to splinter the femur of an extinct horse. The teeth were shorter and stouter than a gray wolf's, not designed for slicing but for gripping and crushing. Canines measured about 2.5 inches long, thick as your thumb, and built to punch through hide and hold on while the molars in the back of the mouth did the real damage. Those carnassials, the specialized shearing teeth, were massive and blunt, evolved to crack open bones and access the marrow inside. We know this because dire wolf teeth show wear patterns completely different from modern wolves. Instead of the sharp edges you'd expect from a predator that eats flesh, dire wolf teeth are worn flat and chipped from repetitive bone crushing. They were eating like hyenas, not wolves. Stand a dire wolf next to a modern gray wolf, and at first glance, they look similar enough. Both are about 5 feet long from nose to tail. Both stand roughly 2.5 feet at the shoulder, about the height of a German shepherd. But then you notice the proportions are wrong. The dire wolf's legs are shorter, its chest is deeper, and its head is comically oversized for its body. Take that 200-pound dire wolf and compare it to a 180-pound gray wolf of the same length, and you realize all the extra weight went into the front end. The shoulders were broader, the neck was thicker with muscle. The skull was 15% larger in every dimension. This wasn't a sprinter. A gray wolf can hit 40 miles per hour in a chase across open ground. The dire wolf topped out around 25 to 30, and it didn't care because it wasn't built for the chase. Shorter legs meant a lower center of gravity. That oversized chest meant room for a massive heart and lungs, but also an anchor point for the biggest pectoral muscles ever found on a canid. When this thing hit you, it hit with the momentum of a linebacker, not a marathon runner. Everything about the skeleton screams ambush predator that grapples, not pursuit hunter that exhausts. Beyond the jaws, the dire wolf carried an arsenal of specialized tools. Those shortened legs weren't a weakness, but an adaptation for power over speed. The bones were thicker and denser than a gray wolf's, built to absorb the impact of tackling prey that outweighed them by half a ton. The claws were heavy and blunt, more like bear claws than the thin daggers of modern wolves, used for gripping and holding rather than slashing. The tail was shorter and less mobile because this animal didn't need the rudder control of a high-speed pursuit predator. The ribcage was barrel-shaped and massive, protecting oversized lungs but also providing attachment points for the muscles that powered those devastating bites. We can count the teeth in those fossilized jaws. 42 in total, the same number as modern wolves, but every single one was reinforced for durability over sharpness. Dire wolves replaced their teeth throughout life, and we found juvenile specimens with multiple generations of teeth forming in the jaw simultaneously. This constant replacement was necessary because bone crushing destroys teeth faster than flesh eating. The entire animal was over-engineered for durability and raw power, at the expense of everything else. Dire wolves didn't chase, they converged. Fossil evidence from the La Brea tar pits shows something incredible. Thousands of dire wolf skeletons, all trapped together while trying to feed on the same carcasses. They were pack hunters, but not like modern wolves. Modern wolves coordinate over distance, communicating with howls, running relay races to exhaust prey. Dire wolves packed tight and swarmed. We know this from the bones they left behind and the bones they marked. Extinct horse skeletons from the Pleistocene show bite marks that match dire wolf dentition perfectly. Deep punctures surrounded by crushed and splintered bone. The attack pattern was simple and brutal. Mob the prey, grab hold anywhere you can, and don't let go. While 3 or 4 dire wolves locked onto the legs and flanks, others went for the throat and face, using that massive bite force to crush the windpipe or fracture the skull. The prey would collapse under the combined weight, and then the real feeding began. Unlike modern wolves that eat the muscle and organs first, dire wolves went straight for the bones. They cracked open ribs to access the marrow, split skulls to eat the brain, crushed vertebrae to suck out the fat-rich spinal cord. We can see this in the fossil record because prey skeletons found near dire wolf remains are absolutely destroyed, not cleanly stripped like modern wolf kills. A 200-pound dire wolf operating at peak efficiency needed roughly 5,000 to 7,000 calories per day. For comparison, that's what a professional athlete in heavy training consumes. But dire wolves weren't eating balanced meals. They were gorging on high-fat bone marrow and brains, then going days without eating, then gorging again. The caloric density of bone marrow is around 500 calories per 100 grams. A single adult bison femur contains about 2 pounds of marrow, roughly 4,500 calories, enough to sustain a dire wolf for most of a day. But getting that femur meant taking down a bison that weighed 2,000 pounds, and doing it with a pack. Territory size was dictated by prey density. Fossil distributions suggest dire wolf packs ranged across areas of 50 to 100 square miles, overlapping significantly with rival predators. They couldn't afford to be picky eaters or exclusive territory holders because the competition was too fierce. Dire wolves ate horses, camels, bison, ground sloths, anything large enough to provide the bone marrow they needed. The dependence on megafauna, on those massive Pleistocene herbivores, was total. When those herbivores thrived, dire wolf populations exploded. When those herbivores struggled, dire wolves starved. Dire wolves possessed one adaptation that gave them a critical edge. They were superbly designed for consuming resources other predators wasted. Saber-toothed cats killed with precision, severing arteries and suffocating prey, then ate the meat and left. Dire wolves arrived at those kills after the cats were done and consumed everything the cats ignored. The bone-crushing jaws meant access to calorie sources locked inside the skeleton. The robust digestive system meant they could process rotten meat that would sicken other predators. They reproduced like modern wolves, with an alpha pair producing a litter of 4 to 6 pups per year. But dire wolf pups stayed dependent longer. Those massive skulls and jaws took time to develop, and juvenile dire wolves show extended growth periods compared to modern wolves. Pups didn't reach full hunting capability until 18 to 24 months of age, compared to 12 months for gray wolves. This extended development period meant packs had to support non-productive juveniles for longer, putting pressure on prey availability. But once mature, dire wolves lived 6 to 8 years in the wild, and their bone-crushing specialization meant less competition from other pack members. Every wolf in the pack could access the same resources simultaneously because everyone was eating different parts of the carcass. Dire wolves ruled North America from roughly 250,000 years ago until 13,000 years ago, throughout the entire late Pleistocene. The continent they hunted was unrecognizable compared to today. Temperatures were colder, glaciers covered the northern third of the continent, and the central plains were endless grasslands supporting herds of megafauna in numbers that would make the Serengeti look empty. Columbian mammoths, mastodons, giant ground sloths, ancient bison, wild horses, camels, and giant short-faced bears all competed for space. Dire wolves weren't the only predators. Saber-toothed cats, American lions that weighed 500 pounds, and the absolutely monstrous short-faced bear that stood 12 feet tall on its hind legs all hunted the same prey. But dire wolves had numbers. For every saber-toothed cat fossil found at La Brea, there are 5 dire wolf skeletons. They succeeded through pack coordination and the ability to consume every calorie from a kill. While the big cats killed and ate their fill, dire wolves arrived in groups of 20 or 30 and stripped the carcass down to scattered bone fragments. This scavenging ability, combined with pack hunting, made them incredibly successful. They spread from coast to coast, from Alaska to Mexico, adapting to forests, plains, and deserts as long as the megafauna were present. Around 15,000 years ago, the climate began to shift. The glaciers retreated, temperatures rose, and the vast grasslands that supported the megafauna herds started transforming into forests and deserts. The big herbivores that had thrived in stable, cold conditions suddenly faced environmental chaos. Mammoths, mastodons, horses, and camels began to decline. Some scientists point to human hunting pressure as a contributing factor, but the real killer was habitat loss. As the prey base collapsed, the predators that depended on them faced starvation. Saber-toothed cats, built for killing but not scavenging, disappeared quickly. American lions went extinct. The short-faced bear vanished. Dire wolves held on longer because they could scavenge, but their dependence on megafauna bone marrow became a fatal weakness. As the big herbivores disappeared, dire wolves couldn't adapt to smaller prey. Their massive heads and bone-crushing jaws were over-specialized, too heavy and metabolically expensive for hunting deer and rabbits. Gray wolves, smaller and faster with more versatile jaws, could adapt to the new ecosystem. Dire wolves couldn't. The last dire wolf fossils date to approximately 13,000 years ago, found in the La Brea tar pits alongside the remains of the extinct megafauna they depended on. They didn't die from weakness or competition from gray wolves. They starved when their food source disappeared. The bones that had sustained them for 250,000 years simply ran out. Dire wolves left behind no descendants. Gray wolves are not evolved dire wolves. They're a completely separate lineage that coexisted with dire wolves for hundreds of thousands of years before outlasting them. Genetic analysis of dire wolf DNA extracted from fossils confirmed what paleontologists suspected. Canis dirus split from the lineage that led to modern gray wolves nearly 6 million years ago. They were as genetically distant from modern wolves as wolves are from coyotes. The dire wolf was an evolutionary experiment in hyperspecialization, and when the environment shifted, that specialization became extinction. You can still see echoes of their strategy in modern animals. Spotted hyenas in Africa use the same bone-crushing approach, with massive jaws and a digestive system that can process rotting meat. But hyenas are smaller, more flexible, and hunt a wider variety of prey. The dire wolf went all in on one strategy: pack hunting of megafauna and total carcass consumption. For 250,000 years, that strategy dominated an entire continent. When the megafauna disappeared, the strategy failed completely and terminally. The La Brea tar pits hold over 4,000 dire wolf skeletons, more individual animals than any other mammal at the site, a testament to how successful they were and how utterly they depended on the Pleistocene ecosystem. When that ecosystem collapsed, they collapsed with it, leaving nothing behind but bones and the legend of a wolf that crushed its way to the top of the food chain. And hey, I'll catch you next time.